Hey YouTubers, it's Charlie. This is going to be my no spoilers Guardians of the Galaxy 2 review, and I'll rank all my favorite Marvel films after Guardians 2 at the end of the video. If you're new to the channel, there's a Spider-Man action figure giveaway going on. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this video. So there's something really special about this film in that James Gunn wanted to capture the magic of the first film without replicating every last thing. Like, there's this famous Joss Whedon quote when he got to the second Avengers film and they were like, hey, how are you gonna top the shawarma moment? And he said, sometimes the only way to win is to not try. So it was like, okay, we're gonna do really awesome things, but we're not gonna do an exact same version of the shawarma moment. So that's kind of the idea with Guardians 2, is that you capture all the things that made that first film amazing and fresh without recycling every single plot beat and joke. So the plot itself actually becomes one of the least important things about the movie. Now, there is a plot. It spends more time capitalizing on the magic of the characters and what's going on inside their heads and what's going on with their relationships. So like Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was already the most colorful, most musical film that Marvel had ever made, probably one of the best creative endeavors that they had. There are other Marvel films that I do like more than the first Guardians film, but it's definitely the most magical film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe before Guardians 2. So the music is always amazing as expected. The visual color palette has expanded, so it's even more mind-bending. They even mastered a version of the film in HDR. So if you have an HDR Dolby movie theater nearby, you kind of have to check on the web to find out where they are. Go see it in HDR because those prints of the film just pop so much more. It looks so much more beautiful. But the film itself looks that much more beautiful than any of the other Marvel films. That's often the criticism of a lot of the early Phase 1, Phase 2 films, but you can see James Gunn's influence on the other Marvel movies that are coming in Phase 3. Look at the Thor Ragnarok trailer. Look how much more colorful that film looks than the other Thor films. You look at the colors pop in Spider-Man Homecoming. So you're starting to see the influence of James Gunn trickle down to the other Marvel films. Things have gone so well with the Guardians franchise that you do wonder if it could ever stumble. And there are a couple jokes that go on a little too long in the film. Very minor complaints is that they do mind the film a lot for comedy. The villains are mostly used for comedy, and some of the plot elements relative to them are a little thin. Like I said, the plot is probably the least important thing about the movie. That's really mostly in service of the hero's character's journey. So there are a lot more heroes that they focus on in this movie. You go way deeper into everyone. In Yondu, not Baby Groot, steals the show. So everybody sees the way they market Baby Groot. You're like, okay, very clearly there's going to be some big Groot twist. They want to sell a bunch of Groot toys. No, it is Yondu's performance, Michael Rooker, that completely steals the show in this movie. And suddenly after seeing it, I started to understand why James Gunn makes fun of him so openly. I'm going to play this clip of him at the premiere, and just think about it this way. The better Michael Rooker's performance is in James Gunn's movies, the more he makes fun of him. So watch what he says about him in this.
I take it back. I don't want to do it with Michael Rooker anymore. He's going to say something stupid. He's going to embarrass me like he's been embarrassing. You know, one of the great things about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is it's a gift for people all over the world, but I also consider it a charity for Michael Rooker. Because otherwise, how is he going to ever make a dime if he doesn't have my movies to act in? That's how he makes his living. So true. So true.
Isn't that totally crazy? You can see the love that James Gunn has for Michael Rooker in that. He said on the commentary for the first Guardians film that every time Michael Rooker has been in one of his movies, he's never let him down. But the crazy thing is that he was never originally supposed to be in the first Guardians film. Yondu was a character that he created really late in the game specifically for Michael Rooker. He's like, I'm going to create a role for my friend Michael Rooker, and that's going to be Yondu. And he said he was really happy that Marvel let him be in the film because he hadn't done really big movies like Guardians of the Galaxy before he signed on for that a couple years ago. So I think that originally Marvel was a little skeptical about the idea of the Yondu character, the craziness of the fin. He's like, oh, maybe this wouldn't work. So we get to the second movie and they find out that the first one works so well. They're like, okay, be as crazy as you want. So we finally get full-blown comic book Yondu. And of all the characters' stories in the movie, Ego the Living Planet is an amazing character. I was so happy to see him. Kurt Russell is amazing. but Yondu's story is the most interesting one during the movie. So you'll see, he has the best story, he has the best relationship with Peter Quill. I felt like the relationship between Peter Quill and Ego was interesting, but it wasn't quite as compelling as his relationship with Yondu. But I think that's kind of the idea. Yondu is the surrogate father that raised him. Ego the Living Planet is the one that just rolls up and says, "I'm your father, Peter," the one that you haven't seen for the last 20 plus years. There were a couple core characters on the Guardians team from the first film that were underserved in the first movie that they totally correct in this one. Gamora and Nebula are amazing. So Gamora is like a main Guardians character, so you expect her to get a lot of story. She was kind of underserved in the first film. I think a lot of her scenes just hit the cutting room floor, so she just didn't have quite as much to do. They totally fixed that, and even though there's this romantic element they've been hyping up between her and Peter Quill, her biggest relationship in the film is with her sister Nebula. That's way more interesting than what's going on with her and Peter Quill. And Karen Gillan is amazing, but she is at both times terrifying and adorable in this movie. And she was definitely underserved in that first movie. She was just the jealous henchman sister that cut her hand off Empire Strikes Back style to escape. She just totally bailed during the first movie, but she totally brings it in this. Gamora is a badass character, but Nebula was way more fun, way more hardcore in this movie. In Baby Groot, so a lot of people might be turned off by how twee he is. Okay, very clearly he's meant to be the audience surrogate for little kids in the movie. Just a dumb person who's trying to help out. He's not the Groot from the first film, so we can talk more about the mechanics of that when I post my spoilery video. But other new characters, Mantis. So very clearly the biggest new character. She's the reason why Adam Warlock is not in the film, because James Gunn didn't want to take focus away from her and he was introducing so many new characters already. So I love the character from the comics. Pom Klementieff did a really good job with her. I feel like there are a couple jokes that just don't quite land with her. And just like Ego, they do a couple really big things in the movie. They're important characters, but I feel like they'll get more character development when we get to the next movie. It's like you introduce a new character, but you really don't go super deep into them until the second movie that they're in. That's kind of what happened with the main Guardians characters. You meet all of them in the first film, you learn a little bit about them. This second film explores them in a much deeper context, and I will confirm, talking about post-credit scenes, there are a bunch of them, and without getting into spoilers, one of them services the Yondu character in a really interesting way and makes you wonder how much bigger he's going to be in the next film. So whatever you do, make sure you stay through the end of the film and watch the credits, because during the movie there are a couple characters that are introduced, and it's probably the biggest comic book Easter egg that Marvel has ever done in any of their films, on par with Nick Fury coming to recruit Tony Stark at the end of that first Iron Man film. That's how big a deal it was, but because it's a comic book Easter egg, I wonder how many people are going to miss its significance. So don't worry, I will do a post-credit scene video where I explain what's going on, but like my other spoilery videos, those won't post till after the film comes out everywhere, so don't worry, there's plenty of time to talk about specific post-credit scene stuff. So if you do get a chance to see the movie before everyone else, please don't post spoilers in the comments. But of all the Marvel directors in Phase 3 so far, James Gunn and the Russos are probably the biggest comic book fans that they have directing movies, so they have the most comic booky moments in their films. So just be sure to watch the film carefully, or see it a couple times if you have to. I feel like a lot of the films in the Marvel Universe I judge on their rewatchability. Probably the most important thing for some of you, ranking my favorite Marvel films after watching Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So sometimes this list will change throughout the year, but now it's Captain America Winter Soldier, Guardians 2 and Guardians 1 are relatively even, but I'll give the edge to Guardians 2 for the additional spectacle that it was able to pull off, then Civil War, then the first Avengers film. So once you do get a chance to see it, let me know what your top 5 favorite Marvel films are in the comments. Speaking of which, I feel like there's a benchmark that nobody else is going to hit this summer, and that's Logan in terms of emotionality. So Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is Marvel's most emotional film, but it's not quite as emotional as Logan. Nothing else is going to touch that this year. I feel like in terms of spectacle, Thor Ragnarok is going to take the crown. Now that's not talking about Star Wars or some of the other films, I'm just talking about the Marvel films. So Guardians of the Galaxy 2 brings the emotion, Spider-Man Homecoming brings the heart, and Thor Ragnarok brings that grand spectacle. Just to give you guys a little tease for things to come, they're saying that they have the biggest action set piece that they've ever done in any Marvel film, including both Avengers films, inside Thor Ragnarok. So I'll let you wonder what that is. Just remember that they have some of the most powerful characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in that movie. So what's going to happen later today is they're dropping new Spider-Man Homecoming promos. I'll do a video for that. We got a better look at Iron Man's ultimate Iron Man suit that he's going to be wearing during the film. And leave all your requests for Marvel videos in the comments below. But congratulations to the latest giveaway winner, Blake Anderson. Please private message me on the back end of my channel so I can get your contact details. But you can click here for brand new Black Panther, the footage breakdown, and you can click here for brand new Justice League. Thank you so much for watching. Let's high five. I'll see you guys in the next video.